Welcome to the Heartland Town Hall. My name is Martha Farrell, and today we're going to discuss the burgeoning issue of data centers that are needed for AI. Of course, this is a national topic, but we'd like to focus on Kansas today. Our guest is Max McCoy. He lives in Emporia, and Max is an award-winning author and journalist. He writes regularly for the Kansas Reflector, which is a wonderful nonprofit news organization. Folks are reading Max's column every Sunday to see what he's thinking about, and lately his thoughts have been about data centers. My co host on the Heartland Town Hall is Dave Kendall. Dave, let's get started.
Thank you, Martha, and thank you, Max, for taking the time to be with us today. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about all this.
Well, thanks, Dave and Martha. I'm delighted to be here.
And I know Martha mentioned you are writing columns regularly for the Kansas Reflector, and I always enjoy reading what you have to say on Sundays. And so not long ago, you've written a couple about what's been going on in Emporia with the data centers there, the new developments. So could you just give us for those who haven't heard anything about this, maybe an overview of what's been happening?
Sure. Well, what's happened is that in early June, there was an announcement that there was a proposed data center for Emporia, and this was was supposed to be 1,000-acre data center, and the developer was not named. And within 24 hours of that announcement, the city had annexed the land in for this data center, and it caused quite a controversy here in town. The speed at which this happened and also the secrecy surrounding it. Apparently, the Regional Economic Development Association and various civic officials have been working for 8 months on this, and the public was excluded for, well, all of these discussions, and we didn't know about it until this was announced on June 2nd. On June 3rd, the city annexed the property in. There was a hearing and planning commission earlier this month to rezone the property and to establish a digital infrastructure overlay for it. And those recommendations passed. It's up to the city commission to decide on those, to vote on them. They haven't voted on them yet. But there's been really a pretty strong backlash here in Emporia to this data center. And this is like data centers in other parts of Kansas and across the country, particularly those proposed for rural areas, that there's a strong feeling among the residents in these places that, well, they are suspicious of data centers. They are suspicious of the process by which the proposals were made. They don't like all the non-disclosure agreements. And there's generally a feeling that the public has been left out of the process. Here in Emporia, there was a petition circulated to force a ballot issue on whether we should have the data center or not. That petition was thrown out because of some technicalities. They are circulating the petition again. I expect that petition will be accepted in its final form and pretty soon. I can talk more about the why there's resistance to data centers, but in a moment. But let me just say one thing that has struck me about the pushback to the data centers, and that's that it tends to be a broad coalition of people who wouldn't ordinarily come together on a subject. And this is the thing that really interests me in these days where we are so politically divisive. Data centers have been an issue that what we used to call the center appeals to, I think, is really motivating what used to be called the center to fight back against these things. And people do it for all sorts of reasons: environmental concerns, concerns about AI, concerns about the secrecy surrounding them, and also concerns about the character of our communities. And that last one is the one that I am really focused on. What will data centers do to the character of not only Emporia, but rural Kansas in general.
And it seems these things are coming up, and people have to get up to speed in pretty short order in a lot of cases about what's involved. I mean, this is kind of a new situation where, people haven't really been exposed to this before, right?
It is a new situation, and it is the Wild West in terms of the standards for data centers. And in large part, I think this puts the public at a disadvantage because we are not used to dealing with these kinds of issues. The proponents of the data center push, and of course, there's a huge push nationally and internationally for data centers. Those who are in favor of it on the national level coach this as almost a national security level of importance, that we have to have them to compete on the world stage. So these things have popped up really everywhere, not just in Kansas. But I think that the proponents of the data centers use the lack of information and the public's lack of understanding of the intricacies of this as an excuse to bash people as Luddites who feel uncomfortable with it. I think that there's a really good argument to be made that data centers the proposals are going too fast, that there's too many of them, they're too poorly understood, and most importantly, that this is leaving cities like, well, Emporia or DeSoto or El Dorado in the situation of trying to come up with their own standards for what a data center should be. And this is ridiculous. There's not that level of expertise at the municipal level to do this. So we're all reinventing the wheel. At one of the planning commission meetings I was at, there was a lot of discussion about what the setback should be for a data center. And it went from, oh, it should be 150, no, it should be 250 feet, no, it should be 300 feet. Well, we don't even know what we're judging. There have been so few details revealed about this data center. We don't know whether there will be large scale gas turbines to supply power when the grid can't. We don't know any of the details about how much noise it will generate. So we're really, not only are we left guessing about what the project and the final form will be, we don't know who the end user will be. So those are all troubling. I personally find it of concern that the city is considering a data center that might benefit the world's richest man, Elon Musk, more than any of the residents. And clearly, this is who the data centers benefit. They benefit the tech oligarchs. They do not benefit the average people in the towns where they live, because they don't bring those kinds of jobs to the towns. Data centers are not very labor intensive. They take up a lot of land, they take up a lot of water, they make a lot of noise, but the income they generate goes into the coffers of the tech oligarchs. So it's really a clash of classes is what I'm seeing. It's here we have the greatest wealth inequality since the Gilded Age. Actually, it's worse than that. It's much worse than it was in the Gilded Age. And here we are being asked to contribute to that by placing these data centers in our hometowns, regardless of what the character of our hometowns are. So those are my
Max,
concerns.
some
Yeah.
of the research that I've been doing on it
Mhm.
talks about how the benefits are all future focused, whereas the realities of what it takes to get one of these things built are present focused. So all we
Mhm.
can see is the downside of it. I've also noticed that they are beginning to acknowledge that letting the community know what is happening is more important than they realized, because we're the ones who can slow down the project. Up to now, everybody's racing to get their data centers up
Mhm.
and go as fast as they can. And it's kind of everybody seems to be motivated by different things, is what I'm noticing.
Sure. And it's a gold rush. And like any gold rush, we don't know how it's going to turn out or who will be the winners and losers. It's possible we could have an AI bust, and there could be lots of data centers that sit idle after this, or projects that are completed. The one thing that I keep coming back to is AI. These data centers are really meant to contribute to the growth, the expanded growth of AI. And is that a good thing for humanity? Is increased AI a good thing for human capability? And I think there's a strong argument to be made that, well, probably not. From my worries are that it reduces human creativity, and anybody who has been on social media knows this, or anybody who is in publishing or in media sees the amount of AI slop that is taking the place of what used to be what craftsmen used to produce in terms of words and images, etc. So there's that worry. What is it going to do to human creativity? The number of jobs it's going to take. And ultimately, can we control the technology? And that last bit, I don't think has been talked about enough. Of course, I'm a columnist. I write for a news outlet. I'm familiar with the AP Style Book, and the AP Style Book just came out with new guidelines that suggested that we need to, when we talk about AI data centers and pardon me, AI, we need to note that no AI has yet has achieved agency, has not yet become, well, for a better word, aware. And I am kind of worried about that when among those who work with AI, and I'm including at the highest levels, they've done studies and they say that AI has a 1 in 5 chance of destroying humanity. Now, this is coming from the people, and this including some of the people who created AI, some of the godfathers of AI. And I've written about this in my columns, and if anyone's interested, they can look this up. But that should give anyone pause. And what it reminds me of is during the Manhattan Project, when the scientists were calculating what are the odds that an atomic bomb will extinguish life on Earth because it will ignite the hydrogen in the air. And they put those odds at 20%. And they deemed that that was safe enough. So I just think we're going way too quick, way too fast. What we really need is a national AI and data center regulatory commission like we had for nuclear, because the technological change of this is, in terms of magnitude to our culture, is like atomic energy, and it should be regulated as such.
Have you spoken to any of our Congress people about this?
I try not to speak to them at all when I can help it. I look at myself as a political outlier, so I do not
Okay.
speak to politicians unless I absolutely have to have a question answered for a column. But if they want to know what I'm thinking, they can read my column, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I just hate speaking to politicians. So,
Well, I just agree with you totally that
mhm.
there needs to be a national standard. And how do we get that ball rolling?
Right, right. Um, with the Emporia data center, I also have some concerns. It hasn't been clear of actually how big it will be. There have been figures thrown around. It's been called a hyperscale data center. Some people have said it will be the biggest one in Kansas. These are all slippery terms, and as far as I can determine, what the proponents mean by this is that it would be scalable, start small at first, and could eventually fill up to 1,000 acres. But again, we just don't know. Another thing that concerns me is that when the developer was identified, it's a gentleman by the name of Gary Pinkston, who grew up in Chase County, had a career in real estate in California and Hawaii. He's 84 years old. Not that the age is a concern, but he's now has come back and said he wants to do this for the community. He is involved in personal Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Uh, and that bankruptcy includes more than a dozen of LLCs he has started. So this does not make me feel great about the odds of the data center going through. And my question to Pinkston and his spokespeople were, how does someone who is in bankruptcy intend to pull off one of the state's largest data centers? Where is the money going to come from? And so far, I've had no answer to that question.
For those people, aside from the unknown long-term impact of AI in general and what it may do to our humanity and as it progresses, what are the more immediate impacts on local communities that people are concerned about?
Here in Emporia, there's been a lot of talk about what will it do to water rates and what will it do to utility rates. And of course, uh, uh, Kansas does have some modest guidelines about that, where data centers aren't supposed to increase your utility rates. I'm worried about the bigger picture. What about added infrastructure for that? What about those costs? Yeah, there's one thing to talk about a rate. It's something else to talk about the infrastructure needed for this. The city is looking at whether the municipal water plant would be able to handle it. Initially, they said yes, and now they're taking a deeper look into that. So people are naturally concerned about their water and sewer rates here. They're concerned about the natural environment, and particularly how a data center, and Emporia is a town of just under 25,000, Dave, and the west edge of it, as you know, is really the front porch to the Flint Hills. Uh, Imagine a 1,000-acre data center at the west edge of the city, and this would be about 1/6 of the size of the city in terms of the land area, separating us from the Flint Hills. I hate that idea. It does not seem to be consistent with Emporia to me. The other thing that I worry about is that all the people here in Emporia who lost their jobs over the various closing, and we've lost about 1,200 jobs in 2 or 3 years, and that's a lot for a city of this size. For many months last year, we were the unemployment capital of Kansas for cities of 25,000 and over. Uh, but a data center will not help those people who lost their jobs at Tyson or the manufacturing plants. It's not going to help the people who are here. Uh, it will create a few high-paying jobs that are very specialized, but it won't help the general labor market. So I don't see how that's a benefit to Emporia. And people say, well, we're gonna increase the tax base. That they compare this to the Wolf Creek nuclear power plant. Well, there's more to a city than the tax base. There's quality of life. And this discussion about the data center comes back to quality of life. Just about everything that has been said in opposition to the data center comes back to a quality of life issue. Whether you're talking about the unbound gravel race and what a 1,000-acre data center would do on those roads that traditionally have been used for the unbound gravel, or those homeowners out who were formerly in the county and now they've been annexed. Some of them have been annexed or checkerboarded, surrounded by the city. What their quality of life will be like, and anyone who's driven out there knows that uh, that out on the west edge of Emporia, it's a rural area. lots of grass, lots of acreage, lots of nice homes. It's someplace I would like to live. Um, and that's going to change. So, and also the other question I have with data centers in Kansas in general is this: data centers use so much water, but we are undergoing a water crisis that is unprecedented in this state. Um, so I worry about the amount of water data centers will use, how much water this one will use, how much it would draw uh, from the municipal water supply, and I worry about other data centers out west and about the aquifer there.
So really, we're talking about the impact of depleting water resources in some areas that are very limited, and then
Hmm.
increasing the power needs in electricity, and that's something that we're already filling up, our transmission capabilities, and so at a time when we need to be kind of scaling back on how much we're generating, this is going to require a massive amount of more generation, which is not good in terms of planetary warming, I wouldn't think.
I wouldn't think so. And the other thing is that we have so many data centers proposed all across rural Kansas, and you take one and look at the infrastructure and okay, maybe the infrastructure could support this one here, but multiply that by how many data centers are being proposed. What is the cumulative impact on rural Kansas? And I don't think anybody is looking at that. They should. Um,
And you mentioned some of the other proposals that are out there. There's a lot of different ones across Kansas at this point already, right?
there are, and in nearly every one of those rural locations uh, where there's been a proposed data center, there has been a pretty strong blowback. People have filled auditoriums in opposition to them. There are organized movements. There have been other petitions circulated to stop data centers. In a few places, there have been moratoria called on data centers. And this is what the organizers here in Emporia, I think, would like to see, either for the city to call a moratorium, uh, at least at least for now, or to see it put to a vote of the people. Because no one asked. This is the other thing with about economic development. This is an unusual economic development thing. I mean, most people understand the way economic development works, I think. You've got a manufacturer who wants to come in, something that would add something to the community. And we understand that those discussions have been confidential until they're not, and then it goes ahead. But this is such a sea change from Emporia. It seems to me that the only um, humane way of going about this would be to ask the public first, what do you think about a data center? Are you for it or not? And this is not the way that it has gone down here. Um, like other people, I feel that this has been rammed down our throats in such a short time. And here we're what, not even 6 weeks out from the announcement of this proposal. And this town has been really torn in two by this, more than anything else I've seen in my 20 years in Emporia. There are friends who aren't speaking to each other anymore. There's been talk about boycotting businesses. Um, and this has really struck the community in such a way that it is divided people, whether you're pro data center or against the data center, in a way that I really have not seen before. And like I said, it's not along political fault lines. It is along a fault line of what is the soul of our community.
What do you think at this point? Do you think a moratorium would be a good solution for the immediate future, or do you have any other
I
ideas
think a
about how?
moratorium would be wise. a moratorium and hoping that there will be stronger state and possibly federal regulation on this, although I don't have hopes of that. But a moratorium to see how the AI boom will shake out, to see more details from this plan. We have precious few details about the data center. I think the end user should be identified so that people will know who the end user is. I don't know how you can make an informed decision about this without knowing who the end user will be. And there's a lot of talk, and people, stop me on the street and I say, well, I read your column, but here's the thing: you use that thing in your pocket, that phone, and it's using it's using data centers, and so you're just being a hypocrite. Well, not really, because we got along just fine with the data center capacity we had until the advent of generative AI. And the data centers that are being proposed won't be running software to fill grocery store shelves, won't be running software so I can make a call to you, Dave. They'll be running software to power things that human beings used to do. They'll be running software to create things. And that really strikes at my heart. And I'm not adverse to technology. I love technology. I mean, I was one of the first to have an email address when I was in graduate school. I'm an amateur radio operator. I understand. I'm a big fan of science. I have always put my faith in science. But here's what I don't put my faith in, and that is the unequal nature of the tech oligarchs. And I think people are responding to this. People have such a feeling that they have no choice, that decisions are being made for them. And I think this is keying into this. And I think a lot of people don't really understand why they are so against the data center. They just feel it in their gut. And I think it may be because that the average person is having so many choices taken away from them. From when you call the local police department here, you get an AI assistant if it's a non-emergency call, to the endless rounds of menus that you have to go through. So these things, I think, are hurting us as a nation, and we need to rethink this. We're so isolated already, and AI is just it's gonna make that worse.
Max, in your specific situation in Emporia, it seems like there's somebody who's behind your 84-year-old real estate investor. So I'm totally with you that we want to know who is it? Who is this
Mhm.
for?
Absolutely, and that is the big question. Even though Gary Pinkston has been identified as the developer, he obviously does not have deep enough pockets and to fund this. So without knowing who is behind it, how can the public make an informed decision? How can we, even if we don't get a chance to vote on this in some kind of referendum, how can we have informed comment to our city commissioners or our planning commission? And the city commission, and I'm going to pick on the city administrator, Trey Cocking, for just a little bit. He can take it. I think he's a good guy. I think he's really competent. But he made an analogy publicly. He said, well, we haven't decided to bake the cake yet. We're just choosing the right ingredients. Well, if you're selecting the ingredients, you're going to bake a cake. It might not be a chocolate cake. It might not be, a strawberry cake, but you've decided to bake that cake. So the feeling here among the public, and I share it, is that the city leaders have decided to bake this cake. We just don't like the taste of it.
Martha, this sounds like a good topic for a Kansas dialogue.
Oh, yeah, it sure does. It sure does.
Yeah. Uh, well, we could go on and on. I mean, it's a kind of a vexing problem right now for a lot of communities on how to handle this. And
But
I think it,
I see an opportunity though, Dave. And if I
yeah,
can, and I'm sorry, I get worked up about all of my columns. I get worked up about this too. Um, but I do see this as an opportunity in that who would have thought that so many people could be energized in Emporia to come together on behalf of anything in 6 weeks. They've got together an organized effort. They've got one petition which failed on a technicality. I understand they're about to get enough signatures for the second petition. And if we can come together on this, then I think we can come together on anything. Um, that this is, yes, it's been divisive for the community, but it also has been a topic of which people care about. And people care about their communities on both sides of this, on both sides of the data center thing. And I think even the proponents of the data center, I think by and large, they are concerned for the community and they see benefits that are real and advantageous to them. And so they're trying to do the right thing. I think they're misguided, of course, uh, but this is civic engagement. And I'm not saying that the process is working. There have been some local commentary that the process is working here. Well, no, the process is broken. When you spring a data center on the public after, 8 months of talking about it, and we've got 24 hours between the announcement and when the land is annexed into the city, clearly the process is broken. I would be more concerned if no one cared, if this happened and nobody said anything. The fact that people are speaking out is encouraging.
This is a very fast-moving topic. We really appreciate the update, Max, and I'm sure as this show starts to proliferate around, there'll be all the more developments to be reported, but you've given us a great primer of what the issues that communities are facing. Thanks.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Martha.
yeah, and thanks for everything you do through your work with the Reflector and other places for informing people and helping educate us about this process we're in as we evolve as a society. I mean, the other article you wrote the other day about 1876 and kind of some of the echoes that come into where we are now, and I think that's very important.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Dave.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up then. Thank you, Max, for joining us, and thanks, Martha, and thanks for those folks of you who are tuning in to watch, and hope you'll share this information with your friends, and tune in again next time and see what else we get into with Heartland Town Hall. See you then.
Thanks for having me. Take care.